Hey, everybody. Welcome to the If I'm Being Honest podcast. My name is Joel Pitney. I'm the host here, and I'm really psyched today to be talking to Jack Shilkaitis, who is who is a master of all things BookFunnel. For those of you who haven't heard of BookFunnel, uh, he- uh, it's a very cool company that I've encountered at many different conferences. That's where Jack and I met. We met at the San Francisco Writers Conference. Jack is the lead author support specialist, and he's also host of BookFunnel's podcast and then their monthly seminars, which are called BookFunnel Live. And he's a prolific writer himself. He's written over 30 books since 2012, all in the sci-fi genre. So thanks for being on the show, Jack.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, Joel. It was a pleasure to get to meet you at San Francisco. I think we might have like bumped into each other a couple other times, but we got
Probably in Las Vegas and maybe some
yes,
other places. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, and but to get the chance to chat with you and get this whole thing set up, I'm happy to be here.
Great. And so, the theme of this show, if I'm being honest, is we're always looking for straight talk about
Yeah,
book publishing and promotion.
I like that.
And I could tell, I've heard a lot of good things about BookFunnel, and I could tell from our conversations that that's kind of your thing too. Actually sat
Yeah.
on a panel together. Um,
Yes,
and so I thought it'd be great for us to talk a little bit about BookFunnel today and to
absolutely.
let listeners of our show to know about this resource and this tool. So
Yeah.
maybe we could just start off talking a little bit about BookFunnel. What is it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. So this is not going to be hard for me at all.
Good.
But for those, if you don't know what BookFunnel is, we're basically a suite of tools that allow authors to deliver their digital books, ebooks, and audiobooks direct to their readers in a number of different ways. And so you can use our tools for a few different purposes, right? Whatever your goals happen to be. For some authors, they're looking to build a mailing list, and that's like their main goal, especially if they're new, right? That's what everybody is told. You've got to build a mailing list. BookFunnel has tools to help you with that. If you're looking for reviews or to find ARC readers, BookFunnel has tools to deliver ARCs. Also has some tools you can use to find those readers, really once you build a newsletter, and we have some advice on that as well. And then for direct sales is another reason why authors would want to use a book funnel. Not the only other reason, but if you're wanting to sell your books through your own Shopify store or other sales platforms, we integrate with those so you can sell your books on your website instead of selling them exclusively on Amazon or Apple or elsewhere. You can make the biggest profit when you're selling direct. But we also assist authors and have tools for delivering things like Kickstarters and rewards for Patreon and other ways that authors do that sort of direct to reader sort of thing as well. So that's kind of the long and short of it. We can really get into the weeds with all the little features that BookFunnel has, but at whatever stage you're at in your author career, BookFunnel has tools for you that can help you facilitate whatever it is you're trying to do, reach those goals essentially.
That's cool. Well, so, back when I got my start in digital marketing, in like, when was that? Like 2005 or something,
Mm.
the funnel has always been a key point
Yep.
in digital marketing, right? How do you create a funnel? How do you create a funnel? It's a cool idea, right? Because a funnel, you think about the shape of a funnel, and it's broad at the top, and then it gets narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower down till the bottom, right? And
Right.
so in digital marketing, a funnel is how do you cast a wide net to engage potential customers, which in the case of writers is people who might eventually buy books, and then kind of cultivate them and bring them closer and closer until eventually they become a reader, right?
Yep. Yep.
So
Exactly.
how does BookFunnel, I mean, you talked about a lot of those things, but
Right.
what's kind of like the bread and butter, like
Right.
of a
Right.
typical author using BookFunnel? How does that work?
Yeah. Well, so let's get into that. So the bread and butter for most authors using BookFunnel are going to be two of our features, which are landing pages.
Okay.
Uh, BookFunnel allows you to create them really easily. You can set up a BookFunnel landing page like from the time like you've created your account, you can have a landing page up and ready to go in less than 10 minutes. Right.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
great.
really quick and easy, customizable. They look nice as well. So you're not having to like tinker with some landing page builder. There's some great ones out there. I've seen authors that have like beautiful author websites, and usually they have somebody else design that for them. But in certain contexts, that's not always necessary, or that's overkill. And so BookFunnel makes it really easy for you to just create a landing page for a specific purpose.
Mm.
Whether that's to collect emails for a reader magnet, that's one of the most common ways that authors use our landing pages. The landing page shows the book cover, can show the description, whatever tagline or call to action you want to include on the landing page. Like I said, it's customizable. And then they can put in their name and email address and consent to join your mailing list in
Hmm.
order to get that book, essentially to claim it. BookFunnel also then handles the delivery. So they download the files from us in that context. And then we also follow up on the back end to support them. So if they have, pardon me, if they have trouble getting that file to their device, because they will have to side load it in some
Hmm.
cases. Like if they want to read it on their Kindle, they're going to have to use send to Kindle. Sometimes readers have trouble with that. It's not very often, but when they do, our reader support team is there 365 days a year, around the clock to help them with getting that book to their device and being able to open it and read it and access it. So
Hmm.
if you're worried about readers having trouble getting the book, we have kind of that insurance there for you on the back end. Now, a landing page to give away a reader magnet is a great way to build your newsletter,
Right.
but you have to get traffic to that landing page. And there's lots of ways to do that. Authors will put that landing page, like they'll link to it from their website, they'll link to it from social media if they're active there, or some authors will even run ads if that's in the cards for some of them, if they have the budget for that to run ads
Hmm.
to a BookFunnel landing page. It's a
Hmm.
strategy that works, right?
Hmm.
But not everybody, that doesn't work for everybody. However, BookFunnel has a way for you right from your BookFunnel dashboard
Hmm.
to get traffic to your landing pages to find readers in your genre. And those are our group promotions. And
Okay.
our group promotions are organized by BookFunnel authors like yourself. And so they will post a promo or organize it, as we say. And then it goes live on the dashboard for all BookFunnel authors to browse.
Okay.
Each author who participates in the promo will throw a book in, right? Maybe one, two, three books, depending on the
Hmm.
requirements.
Hmm.
And all those books go on a bundle page. And so when readers show up there, they get to browse all those books, and they're going to inevitably see yours, and they're going to click on it and go, this looks interesting. And they're going to join your mailing list. And they came from another author because each author participating has to share the promo with their newsletter. So that's where the traffic comes from, is readers who are already on other authors' mailing list and engaged in that way. So you know you're finding readers who are interested in your genre and not just, say a random list of people or anything like that.
Right. So there's a lot to unpack there.
There
So
was a lot, yeah.
no, the first thing it's cool, when you said landing page, right? We're talking about we're not necessarily creating a landing page just to promote the book, right? The
Right.
idea is you want to start broader. You want to give away something free in
Yeah.
return for someone to join your email list so that you can
Nice.
start to cultivate them as a fan, right?
Exactly.
So those
Exactly.
landing pages are really focused on a lead magnet.
Yes, primarily. We have landing pages for different purposes.
Yep.
So that would be our email collection page, which does what I described.
Yeah.
You can also connect that to your mailing list service with integrations. So if you use something like MailerLite or MailChimp or Kit or what have you,
Hmm.
you can have those connected. So when they claim the book on BookFunnel, they automatically get added to your
Right.
list. That it can initiate an automation sequence or a welcome sequence, right, to start nurturing them right off the bat. So we work hand in hand with like a mailing list service like that. But we also have landing pages for other purposes, like our universal book links,
Hmm.
where they're not downloading the book from BookFunnel, but rather you're linking to all the stores where the book is available, which
Okay.
is great. That's useful primarily for like if you're a wide author and your
Hmm.
books are in lots of different stores.
Hmm.
You have one link to share with everybody, and then they can pick their store of their preference. Or if your book isn't available in multiple formats, so ebook, audio, physical, like paperback books, right? Those universal book links make it really easy to share all of those links in one place. That's
Right.
also, easy to navigate.
So you're kind of like a one-stop shop that gives you all the infrastructure
We try to
to
be, yeah.
create a very simple turnkey reader magnet into actual reader solution.
Yes, exactly.
I love
Exactly.
that. So let's talk about reader magnets, because I
Yeah,
think that I always encourage everyone to use a reader magnet. So let's talk a little bit about what that is,
right.
and why it's important.
Right, right. No, a lot of authors, for a lot of authors, a reader magnet is kind of an afterthought, I think.
Yeah.
And I know it was for me. My first my first foray into self-publishing.
Yep.
I had 9 books written in a series before I even was like, oh yeah, I need a reader magnet, right? So don't do what I did, right? I recommend your reader magnet if you're starting a new series or you haven't
Hmm.
launched yet, have that ready to go beforehand.
Hmm.
If you've already published a few books, it's not too late. I'm not saying that, but a
Yeah.
reader magnet is very important. And so this could be something like a short story. It could be a novella. It could even just be the length of a chapter. It doesn't have to be really long. Like most
Right.
readers aren't expecting like a full novel, right?
Right.
There's maybe a little bit of genre expectations in some cases. Like if your genre tends to lean towards like the higher word count, you might want to do a novella because it gives them something meatier, right? If you're in like epic fantasy, for example, a novella is probably a good suggestion.
Yep.
Uh, and if you're in fiction, you're wanting to focus on introducing like the main character, introducing the stakes, introduce the setting, and tell the same kind of story of what they're going to get once they crack open book one, so
Okay.
that so that there's kind of this nice continuity. A lot of authors will do this as like a prequel, right? These are the events that lead up to book one, and so there's
Yeah.
kind of a natural momentum. But reader magnets work in nonfiction as well, and in fact, nonfiction authors, I like to say, have an advantage in
Hmm.
this regard. Pardon me, because there's so many different ways that a nonfiction author could package a reader magnet. You could do it as a worksheet. You can do oh, there's all kinds of different things. I can't even list them all because I'm not a nonfiction author myself, but you can introduce the problem that you're aiming to solve and
Hmm.
maybe which can be compelling in and of itself. And then that leads them into what you're offering next. I know some authors will do like mini little case studies as well in
Hmm.
nonfiction. So for nonfiction authors, the strategy also works, right?
Hmm.
It's not just a fiction author thing.
No, that's great. It's great. No, and I think it's such a great email building tool,
Yeah,
and I think, and I know it, nonfiction and fiction are quite different in how you build your platform, right?
yeah,
But I find that fiction authors, absent a lead magnet, have a much harder time building a platform than a nonfiction author. Because a nonfiction author can be giving all kinds of advice and
yes,
different things. Fiction author, you kind of just have your stories. So
right, right.
it's a really great way to build an email list and a platform um, independent of your books. So
Yep, yep. And for the nonfiction authors who do have a reader magnet, you're just adding it on. It's just added value, right?
yes.
Right, if you set it up right. So win-win.
So in terms of, so you've got the reader magnet, and I know that you have some audience that you can bring within BookFunnel. My guess is that's not the biggest thing, and the what I BookFunnel is giving you the infrastructure to be able to build that funnel, but then it's up to you, the author,
Yeah,
to go out with that lead magnet in place, with all the book funnel infrastructure that's going to
yeah,
take you from lead magnet to reader in place, all that, you've got to go out and find readers.
you do.
Um,
You do.
how
Yeah.
does how have you seen that work most effectively with your book funnel authors?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a few stages that authors go through, and book funnel promos are a great way to lay a foundation.
Hmm.
Um, and then it kind of depends on your business model to some extent. For a lot of authors that are focused on Amazon, right? You're going to be putting your books into Kindle Unlimited. So having a dedicated reader magnet is essential, something that's not in Kindle Unlimited. So you can make that wide. You can also put it in BookFunnel. You can put it everywhere and have a link to a secondary piece of content in it,
Hmm.
right? Uh, Having bonus chapters. in your content, whether it's KU or wide, is also another way we've seen authors have a lot of success,
Hmm.
especially as you're starting to see sales happen on platforms. You're
Hmm.
starting to get some traction because then each book essentially has that little, handcrafted reader magnet at the end of it as they exit the book, which also gives you some interesting data
Hmm.
if you have multiple reader magnets here, because you might have your prequel novella that's at the top of the funnel, but then you have these little bonus chapters along the way. And if you're keeping track of that in your mailing list, which you should be, right?
Hmm.
And BookFunnel has tools to help you do that as well. Then you can see, okay, so this person got the bonus chapter from book one and two and three, and you can start to see that read through and get some data on that as
Hmm.
well, which is
Hmm.
great. So yeah, bonus chapters are another great strategy for some authors, especially authors doing direct sales. The ads route is kind of the direction that they tend to go, obviously, because when you're on Amazon or you're on any other retailer, they're going to do a certain amount of pushing for you. It's not what it used to be, right?
Hmm.
But there's
Hmm.
going to be a certain amount of visibility you get by default. When you're doing direct sales, it's all on you. And so ads are absolutely essential when you're doing direct sales. For there's probably some authors out there I know. In fact, there's some authors I know of that rely on different strategies and do direct sales, but for the most part, that's what you're going to be doing. And you can use a reader magnet there in a number of ways too. Sometimes it's easier to get them to say yes to the free book and then
Hmm.
upsell them in that moment. Or just the fact that when you're doing direct sales, you are also essentially collecting that information. You're getting that reader's email through Shopify or whatever platform you happen to be using. And so you have the opportunity then
Hmm.
to follow up with them and actually build your list as you're selling books.
Hmm.
So direct sales kind of turns every book you're selling into a reader magnet in that sense too.
No, that makes sense. Yeah. No,
Right.
that's really cool. I know
Yep.
one thing that we experiment a lot with is most of our authors are not doing direct sales. They're publishing through KDP and
Yeah.
Penguin Spark and different places. So you don't get the customer data directly.
Right.
So we'll run what we will often do is run a giveaway, especially if they're an author who's done a series. We'll run a giveaway of the first book, and we make sure that on the last page of that ebook, we give away the ebook, right?
Yep.
After it says the end, there's a call to action with a download to,
Exactly.
for the reader magnet, because then
Right.
that gives them an opportunity to either sell another book or get the customer's information right away. And
Exactly.
we have not integrated with BookFunnel, which is something I want to look into, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
For sure. For sure. No, yeah, it's kind of simple. When you get down to brass tacks, you have to
Mhm.
decide what business model you're going to pursue. Because it's not like, man, 10 years ago, there was one business model. And now there's authors today who have proven that there are so many, like with TikTok and social media, and now we have direct sales, and we have authors that nobody's ever heard of making five and six figures on Patreon every month, and right, like there's so many different ways to build a funnel and so many different business models that work for authors now that you kind of want to figure that out first. I know for a lot of new authors, KU is kind of the obvious, it's the most logical choice for a lot of new authors, and I understand why. But regardless of where you are in your career, right, you want to build your funnel around that business model. So if it's direct
Mhm.
sales, okay, we're going to be probably running ads. We're probably going to want to have an option to give away that free book and then have a good welcome sequence on the back of that.
Mhm.
If we are focusing on KU, then the bonus chapter becomes essential, right? Because you're going to be sending traffic there and you want to catch them on the back end, right? So I think you have to look at your business model first, but also be prepared for that to change down the road if you adjust.
Mhm.
And BookFunnel will be there for you either way.
That's great. That's cool. Well, so one thing I like to do, since this is if I'm being honest,
Yeah.
I always like to ask two things, about this. So one of them would be, if you're being honest, what do you think is the most, if you had to point to one thing that you think is most important for an author to focus on. And then we'll get to the second one after you answer
Yeah.
that question. Yeah.
Yeah. So the most important thing, um, and somebody has probably heard this already, so I'm not going to be the first person to say this. The most important thing I think you can do as an author is focus on writing your next book,
Mm.
right? Um, there's certain cases I know where an author writes, they write one book and that's all they need to do for the rest of their life, right?
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
happens. But there's a certain amount of momentum that you gain just psychologically, even beyond like having the next book ready. I've seen this for myself too. If I'm actively working on my next book, I am more likely to send out my newsletter and engage with my readers there. I'm more likely to
Mm.
post on social media because I feel like
Interesting.
I've got this momentum going. Like I'm doing stuff, right? It's on a psychological level. Even if the progress I'm making is slow, even if I'm only writing like 500 words a day,
Mm.
making that progress in that, the things can get kind of clogged, right?
No, that's
It's
really interesting because I've never heard anyone quite. I've heard many people talk about write their next book, but never
yeah.
quite like this because I think a lot of people think of it as a zero sum game.
Mhm.
They're like, well, if I'm going to be working on my next book, I don't have any time to do marketing. Or if I'm going to go out there and do my marketing, then it'll take up all my creative time, and I don't want to do that. But what you're
Yep.
saying is that the two actually work together. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's the fire that fuels everything else, right? So
Hmm.
you I try to keep that fire burning. And I know when it's gone out, and there have been times where it has gone out, everything else for me shuts down. I know some authors they can step away from writing for longer periods of time and still market their books, and that's totally everybody's different. I totally get that, totally acknowledge that. But yeah, you keep those gears turning, and now you have something to talk about, right? You when you're coming to your newsletter, like, yeah, this is what I've been working on this week, and I myself have been dabbling with even releasing some of the things I've been writing as I'm writing them to my audience.
Oh, that's cool.
Which, oh no, it's very cool, and this is more on the author side rather than the book funnel side, but I use book funnel in tandem with this, of course.
Hmm.
But it's very motivating. It's kind of like you get a mini little launch, 2 or 3 times a week when you release a new chapter, and you release it to just a select group of fans. It's not everybody. It's not out there for people can find it, but it makes those stepping stones. So like, okay, I'm releasing this chapter this week, and now I'm working on the next one, and it keeps me motivated and also engaged in still marketing that. And
Hmm.
I'm also even getting like data right at the beginning, like, okay, this book is like, or these first few chapters readers are really engaging with, and that gives me ideas of how I can promote the book later on down the line. And you start working on all that stuff ahead of time or as the book is being written instead of waiting to be done and then going, oh gosh, like how many people have finished the book and be like, now I have to write a book description. Now I have to write like a tagline and ad copy and what was the book about again? And right, oh,
And then
that's
they
a
just go to Chat GPT and have them do it for it.
yeah, yeah,
Interesting. Well, so I want to ask you one more question, but
yeah,
I want to remind everybody if you enjoy this interview with Jack and anything that we do on If I'm Being Honest, make sure to follow us, subscribe, like, comment on we're on all the different social media platforms and podcasting platforms. So it helps us reach other people who need help, and that's what we're here to do. Um, my last question is similar to the first one, which is, in the theme of honesty.
yeah,
Um, as you know, being in the book world, there's a lot of dishonesty. There's a lot of false promises. There's a lot of inflated, tactics, that kind of thing.
yeah.
If you're being honest, what would you say is the most, I guess, over things that a lot of people say are important that you don't think are?
Hmm. Just like in the book industry and self-publishing.
Anything. It could be anything.
Oh man.
Something that you're hearing all the time that people are coming to you and saying, I got to do this, I got to do this. Someone says I got to do this, but actually you don't think it's that effective or it's not important
Oh,
or
well, so Without intending to offend. I want to preface
That's
this.
okay. It's a safe space.
Uh, Book launches, but let me
Okay.
be clear, not right specifically book launches, because I know that some authors, the idea that you have to get it right the first time or it's all over, right? You can relaunch your book, right? You can come back to it years later and reinvigorate it. The idea that you got to get your book launch right the first time, it all has to be perfect. Like for it's great if it is, right? And we help authors all the time in BookFunnel author support because they're using our tools to find ARC readers to get reviews lined up on release day, and they've got this launch window. And we had an author recently who came to us and they just signed up. And they're like, I've got 2 months to build an ARC team and get 100 reviews on my book. How you got to help me do this? And it's okay. Realistic expectations a little bit. There is some of the conversation we have to have with some authors, with all due respect. But even if you launch your book and maybe you're disappointed with the results, like take a step back and just acknowledge what you've accomplished, right? You've launched a book, right? Which is something that most people do not do. And it's not over, even if it doesn't go as well as you thought it would, right? There's a very long tail on
Hmm.
this journey, right? So not to again to for clarity here, you should launch your book. Absolutely, do a big book launch. Put all the effort into it that you want to.
Hmm.
But if it doesn't go as well as you thought it would, don't feel like oh it's all over, right?
That's amazing. I love that. And it's interesting because we just did another episode of our podcast on this topic. Sadie and I just riffed on
Yeah.
this because and I think what you said was beautiful. And the one thing I might add to it is that part of the problem with that, I would call it book launch consciousness, right? Or book
Mhm.
launch obsession,
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
people will often do that at the expense of the things they really need to be doing to
Right.
build something long term, like building a
Right.
book funnel, for instance.
Right. Right.
They're overly obsessed with trying to get everything right for this tiny little thing, whereas instead of putting all that energy
Yeah.
into building something real and lasting, and
Right.
something that's going to actually bring them success.
Right. Or they've compressed that timeline for arbitrary reasons, like my book has to launch on this date.
Right.
Well, have you built a mailing list yet? Like how big
Hmm.
is your existing audience now? Because they're going to help you get that thing launched. And so if you're not there yet, well, what do you really need? Do you need a bigger audience or do you need to
Right.
launch a book on this date? You probably need to work on building that audience first. And you can
Right.
you can do that ahead of your launch. There's many ways to do that. And that launch date, you can push that back, stretch that time out if you need to. And
You can also launch your book and then build your audience afterwards, and
you
it's still
can.
okay too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, absolutely. I've seen authors who have done
You're not
that.
going to get people get afraid
No,
that somehow Amazon's algorithms are going to penalize them, and because their sales are slow, and that it's just not really a thing for most
no,
people.
no.
Yep.
All Amazon cares about is that when people land on that page, they're converting,
Yep.
right? And they don't care how long that product, that ASIN has been active.
That's awesome. Well, Jack, this has been really wonderful. I
Yeah,
appreciate you taking the time to do this, and
absolutely.
I
Anytime.
encourage everybody to check out all the things that BookFunnel has to offer. Check out BookFunnel as a product, but also make sure you check out their podcast. And then also they do free monthly seminars. Is that right? BookFunnel Live,
Yeah,
is that right?
yeah. So we've got obviously if you go to bookfunnel.com, you can learn everything about BookFunnel that there is. We also our YouTube channel is a great source for the BookFunnel podcast. Our webinars go up there as well. We host webinars monthly, usually the beginning of each month, and on a variety of topics. We even have guests come on and so forth from the industry for some of those webinars on more specific niche things. But yeah, if you just go to YouTube, search up BookFunnel, you'll find us there. We're also on Instagram. Uh, and as far as the podcast is concerned, I know we're up on like Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. So if you prefer to listen as opposed to watch your podcast, you can find us out there on most podcasting platforms. So
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Jack. I appreciate
yeah,
you being here today. And again, if people enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us. Share it with your friends. We're trying to reach lots of authors who need to help support, guidance, and inspiration. So, thank you very much.
yep. Thanks, Joel.